Today we're planning to just give a brief overview of the custom tools in MSC Apex. I think some of you are familiar with it, but there has been quite a few developments in the last few versions, and we thought it would be a good idea to just give an update of what's new. And for those of you that's not familiar with custom tools, just show you where the custom tools in Apex is and what you can do with it, more or less. So what is custom tools, or more specifically, what is custom tools in MSC Apex? So first of all, it's tools created by the users for the users. So most of these tools that you will see is developed by some of the technical staff at MSC, but they were developed because there was a customer that specifically asked for this functionality. So they are still tools that is created by the users for the users. There is some third-party contributors as well, but the custom tools is mainly maintained by the MSC technical staff. Okay, so previously the custom tools was known as your Apex utilities or user-defined tools. So there was always a SharePoint site where you could go and download these user-defined tools, and then you needed to do some work on the back end to see all of these custom tools. Now, luckily, with the new versions of Apex, these user-defined custom tools comes pre-installed with Apex, so you no longer need to actually go and download them and put them in the correct locations for them to work. It's simply a tick box that you need to switch on, and they are there that you can use them. Okay, then a bit of a warning. You can still get access to these scripts, so you're more than welcome to go and modify them for your specific use case. But like I said, it comes with a warning. If you modify it, then the script no longer works as expected. Obviously, if it doesn't work anymore, then it's up to you to either fix it, but use or go and modify these scripts with caution. But they are available. I'll show you where they are stored, but you can go and edit them to make them more applicable to your specific application. Okay. The next thing is the easiest way to show them and to show you where the different things are is to go and demo them. So what I'll do is I'll firstly show you how to enable these tools. I think in the latest release they are on by default, but I'll show you where you can switch them on and off. There is also, what's new is there is documentation on most of these tools. I'll also show you there is some of them that still do requires documentation, and I think we will see the missing documentation in the upcoming release of Apex 21.2. The beta release is coming out next month, and then the month after that the official release will come out, and there will probably be a few new user-defined or custom tools as well. I'll also go through the different tool tabs that you have available, and then I'll also show you some of these tools in action. So we'll get to the questions later. So I'll now switch over to Apex. So the custom tools that I'm referring to is here on the right-hand side. So these are all the different custom tools that some of you might have seen. So usually when you install the user-defined tools, you'll see this tab. But like I said, there has been a few additions. And what they also did is they tried to sort them into more applicable groups. So you'll see this is specifically for attribute utilities. This is specifically on fasteners. This is specifically for geometry and FEM utilities. This is specifically for interoperability between some of the other MSC One software and also some third-party software. And this is your query or your inspection tools. So first things first, where do I go and switch them on if they're not on by default? So you can go to Options, Application Settings, and then you'll see here is a tab called Custom Tools, and you can literally just go and tick these boxes on and off depending on what, and then once you apply them, you can also select which tools you want to show. These two I did not tick, but if you tick them on, there will be 2 additional tabs that will be added there. And if I just quickly show them, these are the user-defined tools that in the past came pre-installed with MSC Apex, and it was more to show you how you can create a Python script and then develop that into a tool with an interface within the GUI. But yes, so they are still there, but these now come pre-installed as well with Apex by default. Another thing that I quickly just want to mention as well is you also have the capability to write scripts and execute them maybe as MSC, as Apex opens. Paul showed a nice script the other day where you can write a script where you can run it at your startup of Apex, and then it will automatically populate your materials for you with your default materials. So this is more or less just what I wanted to show. So you just go Options, Application Settings, and then you can come and enable the custom tools that you are interested in using. Okay, the next thing that is also important, I mentioned it, there is actually documentation available for these tools as well. And this can be quite handy if you need to find out how these tools work, because I usually have a very specific workflow that needs to be followed. So if you go to Help, and then let me just go back a few tabs quickly. So this is the screen that will open. Then you go to Scripting, Macros, and Common Features. Then you go to Custom Tools. And then here you can see, just in this release alone, there is 15 new custom tools that have been added. Okay, so you can go through these different tools, and if you scroll far enough, there is actually some documentation that gives you an indication of how this tool is supposed to be used. Now, what I should also mention is Apex is currently missing some features that some of the customers really like. And this is also a temporary place where the Apex technical staff is implementing some of these features that customers really want, but it's not yet implemented in Apex. So a lot of these features will also be stored in this custom or custom tools section until they are officially implemented as a feature within Apex. So let me just quickly show you as well. So if you hover over the button, you get also, like with all of the other features in Apex, you now get a space where you can go and say learn more, and it will also then take you to the documentation for that specific feature. Now, there is also a few of them where you will click and it will also show you there is some documentation available, and then when you open it up, it will just give you an under construction. So that just simply means the documentation for that specific feature still needs to be added. But like I said, I'm fairly confident that we'll see a lot of the missing documentation we'll see in the upcoming release of Apex 2021.2. Okay, the last thing that I want to show before I illustrate a few of these tools is to show you where these tools are stored. So if I go to Documents and I go to the MSC Apex Workspace, the Custom Tools resides, there will be a folder that says Custom Tools, and they reside within the, so if I now go to Apex Utilities, you'll see the same groups that you see in Apex is now here. So there's attributes, fastener tools, and if I then go a bit further down, I can go into a specific tool now or a specific group, and then I can go into a specific tool, and then if I go far enough down, I'll actually get the different scripts that I can now go and edit. But like I said, when you want to edit these scripts, do it with caution, because if you change something in these scripts, you might make a mistake, or it no longer will work as intended. So use caution when you want to edit these scripts. Okay, so let me just quickly show you a few of these tools in action. So this is a typical type of plant with a lot of different piping sections. Some of these you want to model in detail, but typically maybe something like this, you'll only want to model it as a mass. So there I will want to use this, but I expect an error now, and I'll explain why it should not work now. So it did not create a point mass, and the reason for that is I haven't assigned materials yet to my specific part that I want to create a point mass, and it requires a density to calculate the mass. So this is another thing that I also just want to mention, is if the tool does not work, please go and look in the log file, because often you will find the reason why that specific tool does not work within the log file, and then you can just simply change it, and then the tool should work as expected. So I need to still assign material to my different geometry pieces in my assembly. So what I can do is I can also show you one of the other new tools that's available. So here you can get my materials, and you can see it now comes pre-populated with some materials, but you can also go and edit this material database, because it's in an Excel spreadsheet. And here you can see all the different materials that you can also see in that dialog box within Apex. But what you can do now is you can go and build your own Excel spreadsheet with all of the materials that you regularly use, and then you can just point to that specific Excel spreadsheet, and every time that you work within Apex and you start a new model, you can just import those Excel or that specific Excel. So the way that I need to go and import it is just another tool is, so here you basically define which Excel spreadsheet should be used, and I can just let the script run. And if I go now to my materials, here I can see I have materials pre-populated here as well with properties. So this is one of the new tools that's available, is the ability to populate an Excel spreadsheet and then generate the materials within Excel. So for this, we'll just say, okay, well, we assume everything is still, and we can just quickly assign a material. And now I just want to specifically go and search for this component in my tree. So I can just say center in browser. So I know that that is there. So if I do the point mass operation again now, I should see a point mass being generated for that specific component. So if I now just say I want to create a point mass from this, and I run the script again, I can now see that I have a point mass there. So if I switch this off, you can see my point mass that is created, and I can now go and use something like discrete tie, or more commonly known as a RBE connection, to tie that point mass to the rest of my structure. Then there's a lot of other tools that you can also use here. So for instance, you can see there's a lot of lugs in this model. So I can go and use the lug load tool, where you can just specify a distribution and the load, and then apply it on the surface within that lug. I'm not going to show this specific one because that feature has been with us for quite a while. The composites as well. This feature has been with us or these features have been with us for quite a while. But if you work with composites, I would think that some of these tools would be useful, especially if you need to import apply stack instead of creating a panel and specifying apply one by one. It's much easier to do it via CSV file, and then there's also some post-processing that you can go and do. Then the color by materials is also a very nice feature. It has been with us for quite a while, and it will eventually, as far as I know, sit here. So we already have the model representation, and then if we switch to the section representation, it will show you all of the different section sizes. And I would think eventually what will happen is we will see a materials section added here as well, where it will color the structure based on the different materials that we have there. But I'm not going to spend time on this one. Like I said, it's all has been with us for quite a while. Some of the new features in this tab, I'll show these two later, but you can now also display spatial loads, and you can map spatial loads as well. So I'll show an example just in a bit of how to map spatial loads. In this case, I'll do it from Cradle CFD run, and I'll show you how that works, and I'll also then just show you the applied loads. But you can also now, from within Apex, import loads that you have extracted from Atoms. So there is definitely some interoperability that's been added here. In terms of the fasteners, so this fastener section has also been with us for quite a while, and there's quite a few variations and stuff that you can do with fasteners. But I'll just quickly show you the most basic fastener tool, where you can literally just say, I want to create or connections between two plates, and it must go and identify the holes for me automatically. So just if I can just show this only, we can quickly go. So I've already removed the bolts because I'm going to represent this in quite a simple fashion by just using the different connectors. So the basic tool is this tool. So this tool you can use with solids and shells, and you need to specify. So first you just need to give it a name. So I'll just do bolts, and then you need to specify the fastener type, the type of material. I'm not going to worry about this. And then here you need to specify the maximum diameter. I think these holes are 25 millimeters in diameter. So I'll use 50 just to ensure that it will capture all of these holes. And then when I execute this, it will run, and just give it a while. But okay, I actually made a mistake now. So what happens now is it will go through the whole model. So I'll just let this Apex run, and then maybe when it's done, I'll come back. But you can see it's actually busy creating fasteners, but it's through the whole model. So that's also a good reason why you need to go and read the documentation. If you don't specifically select parts that you want to look for holes to create connectors between, it will go through the whole model and create fasteners for all the holes that it will detect with diameter smaller than 50 millimeters. Another thing to also just mention, you can see here there's not units. So that's another reason why you need to go and read through the documentation, is just to see what the units of the quantities is that you need to specify. But like I said, I'll leave this model to run now, and we'll see what happens afterwards. But like I said, I can already see here in my model tree that it is actually busy creating the different points, and then it will start to create the fasteners between the holes that it identified. So like I said, I'll just leave that one for now. So what I'll do is I'll quickly show you the mapping function in this specific case. So I've already created the file that I need to map. I just want to mention that there is quite a few different file formats supported here, and there is actually a Apex tutorial for each of them. So in this case, I'll use the XML format from Cradle, and that file is here on my desktop. Let me just get the right one. And if I now I need to select the target, so I'll do this, and now what I'll do is I'll just give this a name. So let's just name it load. And I can go and preview this. In this case, I'm going to skip that step because I'll show you how to preview it with this tool as well. So I'll just say you can go ahead and just to be sure there is no pressure load created already. So I'll go ahead and say you can go ahead and create the load. In this case, obviously, you need to have the component meshed as well. I deliberately chose a coarse mesh just to make this process a bit faster, because if you apply it to a fine mesh, this can take some time. So you can see I have a load now, and it's a distributed pressure load. And now I can go and do the visualization of this. So if I do that now, and so in this case, it looks like nothing is happening because I see my script is running, and you'll see in some cases, it will open up this window sometimes in the background. So that's also something just to look out for, but you can see this is my pressure load that I've now applied. I won't show it now, but I can guarantee you that it looks similar to the loads that I've extracted from the Cradle software. And then once I close it, you'll see that this script doesn't run anymore. So it actually just runs to keep that window open. And then after you've done visualizing it, then you just close it, and then the operation is done. Okay, let's just quickly have a look and see where our other, so you can actually see now it's still busy, but you can see that it is busy creating the fasteners as I want them to be created. Once I've meshed this part, the discrete ties will automatically update based on the mesh that I've put on it. But you can see here at the bottom, it's still busy creating them. So if you're confident that you know exactly what's going on in your model, you can just use this and it will create fasteners as needed. So it's now finished as well. So you can see there is fasteners created for the specific, and then in a lot of other locations as well. The one thing that I can also mention is don't try and use these custom tools on a big model straight away. Go and test it on a smaller model to see that what you expect to happen is actually happening. So like I said, that you can see fasteners has been created, but obviously go and test it on a smaller model before you take on something big that will run for a few hours, and then afterwards you see, well, it did not work as intended. A few other things that I quickly want to show you as well is some of the other tools. So we've quickly gone through the first two tabs. In this tab, there is also a few nice tools. So for instance, if you have different mesh sizes, as you can see in this example, you can now use this auto tie option, and it will go and create ties between the two differing meshes. So let me just quickly run it, and you'll see now that there is ties created between these. It's not that visible from here, but you can see that there is the ties that I created. I can quickly just go and show it in the model browser as well. You can see there is my tie that was created between the two different mesh sizes. Then some of the other features here as well is this. This is also a nice feature for me. Often when you specifically stitch components together, it's often easy to miss one of these edges that is supposed to be stitched. And this tool makes life a bit easier by going and labeling all of the free edges that is present in your model. In the next release of Apex, they actually implemented this as a feature to help you to identify any free edges in your model. Then this is also an interesting thing. When you accidentally go and create duplicate surfaces in your model. And this can very, very easily happen, and you won't realize it. And what you essentially will do is you'll have two plates in the same space. So what I did here is I also specifically, I just want to see which plate is double. So you can see that there is one of them there, and there is another one of them there. So I accidentally created two plates on top of each other. In some cases, when you draw a sketch, Apex will automatically see, well, this is in the same part family, and it's exactly the same, and it will automatically delete the one. But often it can still happen that it does not occur. So what I can do now is I can go and select this, and I can say, okay, please go and remove this. So you can see one of my surfaces has now been removed. Now in this case specifically, it removed the one with the mesh on it. So it's not clever enough to say, well, I'll select the one that does not have a mesh on it. It will randomly pick one of the two and remove them. So this is typically an operation that you'll do before you actually mesh. I'm seeing I'm slowly but surely running out of time, so we might just go over a bit. This is a simple tool just to disassociate your mesh from your geometry. Again, you just select it and you run the tool, and you'll see then that there's no longer the mesh. I can now delete this, and the mesh should still stay there. And I see that that is exactly what happened. Okay, so there is some other nice tools here as well that you can use to do some of the simple operations like offsetting a node and so on, but I'll skip over them for now. Then in terms of the interoperability, this is quite a nice tool, but because we're running out of time, I'll just quickly show it. Because Apex does not by default allow touching contact to happen, you can still set up your run and do the modifications to your normal independent or the glue ties. I just quickly want to get the correct naming here. It's a mesh independent tie in Apex, but it's the same as a glue connection. So you can go and update this to actually be a touching connection if you want to do it. And you can do that by selecting it in the model browser, and then you can run it, and it will automatically, well, in this case, I see that it did not, or it I must just say load settings. So then it will basically open that specific connection, and you can go and change that from glue to touching, and then you use it in combination with this export utility. And then when the BDF is written out, it will change that connection from a glue to a touching connection. But again, with this specific tool, I highly recommend that you go through the documentation first. This is also a nice tool where you can export your analysis and mark database with all of the mesh and loads already imported will be created. Then these are just your normal inspection tools. So just to count your nodes and elements by parts. So there's quite a few variations here. This one might sound odd, but you can often have an issue to identify with which model of Apex you are currently busy with and where it is located. This is probably something that will eventually be here in the header. What we usually do is we just save the model again, and then we can see where it is located. So this tool does something similar, and then you can go and extract stuff like location data or areas of surfaces, volumes, And you can also then, for instance, do the mass properties of solids you can extract. But these are mainly just the inspection tools, and they've been within the software for quite a while already. But I see we are now currently out of time, so I don't have time to show any more. But I would recommend that you just take some time and go through these tools and see what will be applicable to you. The other thing that I should also just mention is, because these scripts are not included in the Apex development, and they are developed by some of the technical staff within the MSC group, it might happen when you get a new release that one of these scripts does not work. And then what's easy to do there is, you'll see if you open the instructions, they give you the person that you can contact, but you can contact us as well. And then they just do the update if it was missed during the release, and they send a new script that you can just replace, and the function will work as is. What I'll do is, when the beta comes out, I'll run through all of these tools to see if there is any that does not work, and hopefully we can get it fixed before the major release. But just as a side note, if something does not work as expected, or there's maybe a feature that you want to add, you can send it to us, but you can also contact the MSC guy responsible for that specific feature directly.